I want you to think back to that one time where you had that assignment due, where the deadline was closing in, but for whatever reason, you just kept on procrastinating. You keep telling yourself that you'll do it later because you're more productive when you leave it last minute. But then it's at that one moment where the deadline really closes in and you start to feel the weight of the consequences if you don't lock in right now and actually complete that assignment. And all of a sudden, your brain decides to turn on and you're suddenly able to focus. And it feels like all the right words are flowing to you as you type away. And you somehow manage to submit that assignment right before the deadline. And you lean back on your chair and you take a deep breath. And then you just think to yourself, why didn't you just start earlier? Now, if that sounds familiar, I'm going to dive deeper into the reasons as to why we procrastinate in the first place. I'm not really going to talk about the science behind it or a step-by-step guide on how to stop procrastination, since I do believe that there's a lot of them out there. Instead, I just want to focus on the why. Because in my opinion, simply being aware of the issue and then taking initiative to research solutions based on your individual needs is the best approach. That said, near the end of the video, I'm going to be personally sharing how I overcome my procrastination. But before that, let's just get to the meat and potatoes of this video, which is why we procrastinate in the first place. Well, we tend to procrastinate because it's a mechanism that we've built up over time to cope with the anxiety of starting a task or even making a decision. And the narratives we hear from the world around us only makes things much worse, especially in the education system, where you would hear phrases like, why are you being so lazy and just be more organized? And why are you struggling so much? Everybody else can do it. Why can't you? It's not that hard. And we don't really help ourselves either, with all the self-talk and the psychological pressure we put on ourselves. And it might sound something like this. How on earth am I going to complete this? I can't mess this up. This has to impress everybody. I only have one shot at this. And all we're doing here is overwhelming our minds with unnecessary pressure, which, as you may know, only increases the likelihood of us procrastinating on the particular task. Until we get hit with the realization of the consequences of not taking action. And that right there, that last minute realization and that urgency to actually complete the task is actually one of the factors to overcoming procrastination. It's just that we do this kind of naturally without being conscious about it. And here's the thing, right? This concept is something that we can harness proactively, rather than experiencing it passively. In fact, many successful people that you already know actually create this sense of urgency long before the deadline ever arises. And they do this by creating artificial deadlines, creating accountability, and even using a structured routine to mimic this high-pressure environment of last-minute work. But there is something that I do want to talk about, which is us humans having this tendency to tie down our worth on how much we're able to produce. Because we do judge ourselves quite heavily based on our output, which fuels this sort of perfectionism, self-criticism, and the fear of not being able to enjoy our quote-unquote free time, just to meet this sort of arbitrary standard we set for ourselves. And I just want you to be mindful of attaching your identity to one aspect of life, whether that's the way you look or your work in this instance. And I'll be honest, I've personally been guilty of this myself. And I've realized the importance of having a healthy level of detachment from these things. Because half of the time, you just feel guilty for procrastinating. And the other half, you're just rushing to meet a particular deadline, feeling like you just never have enough time. Now imagine if I could recreate that urgency that I was talking about earlier, well before the deadline. Now we have plenty of time to actually work on the particular task, and then plenty of time afterwards for just relaxation and fun. And this is where progressive action comes into play. Think of it like building a house. You don't just throw all the bricks all together in one go. No, you go step by step, one brick at a time, because there's no need to rush. Because instead of waiting for the deadline panic to kick in, what if we just build that momentum gradually, well before the deadline? And by taking these smaller intentional steps, I was able to rewire my brain into associating progress with momentum rather than pressure. And when I was able to shift my perspective in this way, this was genuinely how I was able to overcome my procrastination and not let it feel like such a burden. I appreciate you watching the video, and if you're still interested, you can check out one of the videos that are popping up on screen right now.